Which seeds can I winter sow? That is a question I've gotten quite a few times, so this video is my attempt to tackle it. I will be showing you some of the plants I have successfully winter sown in my Georgia Zone 8A garden. If you have never heard about winter sowing, my hope is that this video will encourage you to try your hands at it. And if you have been winter sowing but have only grown leafy greens and a few flowers, I hope this video helps you break free from the limitations and broaden the variety of seeds that you can start with winter sowing. Because leafy greens are cool and all, but there is so much more. And I am willing to push the boundaries if you are too. So let's get started. Welcome to Finding Joy in the Garden. I have a whole bowl of seeds that I have grown in my garden through winter sowing. These are, of course, not all the seeds, but I have divided them into categories, including herbs, peppers, tomatoes, flowers, leafy greens, miscellaneous fruit and vegetables, and a random fruit. And stick around to the end because I will be showing you my top pick from each category from the 2024 garden and the one plant that I was not able to successfully winter sow. Let's start with herbs, and the first up is this thyme. It's Orangelo thyme, and it's a little bit different from the regular common thyme or English thyme. It has really small leaves. This grew beautifully with winter sowing. I also grew the regular common thyme, as well as this, which is a Lebanese za'atar thyme. It's very different from a regular thyme. I don't believe they're the same family, but this is great. It grew well, and it is hardy to my zone, so it is overwintering right now. On to one of my favorite herbs to grow last year in the 2024 garden, the lemongrass. This I had heard was really hard to germinate. And even on the seed pack, it says that it has irregular germination. But this thing grew so well being winter sowed. It was amazing. I didn't expect it to grow that well. It blew my mind. But this lemongrass, I also grew stevia, which is like a sugar plant. It's a sweetener. Broadleaf sage. And two types of savory, the winter savory and the lemon savory. They both did really well. I eventually lost this one because I put it in a very dark area of my garden, didn't do anything to it, but this one is still there and it is overwintering as well. Now I also winter sowed Siam Queen Thai basil, regular Thai basil, dark opal purple basil, purple ball basil, dwarf Greek basil, mammoth basil. I think you get the point. All kinds of basils. These were not the only ones I grew, but I think you understand that I grew a lot of basil by winter sowing. So we'll move on. Oh, sorry. Also had to mention my favorite basil, bush spicy glow basil. I love this thing. Now on to miscellaneous vegetables. I grew the bait alpha cucumber. Now with cucumbers, I did sow them a little bit later so that they didn't get stuck in a container for too long. So I believe I may have started them in March. But I grew the bait alpha cucumber, the Armenian yard-long cucumber. I loved this thing. In years past, I have grown the Black Beauty eggplant and the Casper eggplant, but I realized I don't like to cook eggplant. I like to eat it raw. So I switched to growing more of this Turkish orange eggplant, which you can eat raw before it ripens to this color, and the striped green eggplant. And they all did fabulously well. Moving on to alliums, I grew a lot of green onions. So the bunching type onions, like this one here, the guardsman onions, the white Lisbon bunching onion, and the red beard bunching onion, and they all came up really well. I sowed it thickly, they popped up really well. I transplanted them, no problem. Other alliums I winter sowed include the leek. This is the Dawn giant leek. And I also grew the lion's mane chives. This is from M.I. Gardner. I love this one. and it did well. So now we're going to move on to leafy greens, which is one of the things that a lot of people are comfortable winter sowing because most of them are kind of cold hardy and can handle the cold. So they do very, very, very well with winter sowing. So some of the ones I've grown include this gorgeous scarlet kale, the dazzling blue kale. Isn't she pretty? Swiss chard. Swiss chard does so well with winter sowing. I've also grown tatsoi, lacinato kale, Paris Island romaine lettuce, chijimasai, and the Japanese mountain spinach. If you have any leafy greens that you like to winter sow, please leave them in the comment section. It might help someone out. But now I'm going to move on to one of my favorite things to winter sow. And I'm so glad I found out about winter sowing because I did not want to put these in my house and have to baby them and take care of them and water them and fertilize them and pot them. So one of my favorite things to grow, and that is tomatoes. And I have grown the orange peach tomato. This was such a fun thing to grow. The texture, just feeling the tomato, it feels fuzzy like a peach. It doesn't just look like a peach, it actually feels like one. So that was a good one to grow, orange peach. I also grew the Prairie Fire gorgeous tomato. Now, the only thing I'll say about this tomato is it splits really easily. So if you know there's rain coming, I'd advise you to pick it and let it ripen on your countertop. But this was beautiful and it's very sweet tomato. Also grew the Ace 55 tomato. This is a bush tomato. I love this tomato. I've grown it for maybe 7 years. I love this tomato. And then for the first time last year, I grew the Barry's Crazy Cherry. It's beautiful. I love the clusters. It's fun to grow. I love exciting things in the garden. So, and then one of my favorite tomatoes ever, the black cherry tomato. And I've grown this one almost every year since I started gardening, and that's the Super Sweet 100. It's a hybrid tomato. It's very sweet. I love it. I skipped it one year and then I'm like, I think I like it. I missed it a little bit, so. Super Sweet 100. Tomatoes do very well with winter sowing. You would think they wouldn't because they are more, would you say tropical? They like the heat. But I have had no problem germinating tomatoes, keeping them alive in winter sown jugs or other containers. They have done really well. So if you've never tried winter sowing tomatoes, give it a try. You have absolutely nothing to lose except a few seeds and an old milk jug. Now, I know I said I love growing tomatoes, but my favorite thing by far to grow in the garden has always been peppers. If you've been here more than a second, you would know I'm absolutely in love with peppers and I grow a ton of them. So I cannot possibly show you all the seeds that I grow in my garden, but I'll leave a link to a video that shows most of the varieties I grew last year if you're interested in that. The different peppers are labeled on there, so if you are looking for seeds for a pepper garden, go on there, you'll get a bunch of them. But let me show you some of the ones I grew last year. This is the Ahi Crystal pepper, Ajvarsky pepper. These were all winter sowed. The Hungarian Magyar paprika pepper, the Jamaican yellow mushroom pepper, the Cayenne purple pepper. Oh, I loved this one. It was so good. Now my peppers looked absolutely nothing like these ones. They were smaller, so they were short like this, and they mostly pointed upwards, but they were purple, and actually some of them looked almost dark, like almost black. I loved the plants. I had two plants that were growing right next to each other, and the leaves looked different, the flowers looked a little different, and the peppers looked a little different, but they were gorgeous. And I'm actually attempting to overwinter them in my garage. So subscribe so you can see if those peppers make it. The patchwork pepper. I thought I didn't sow this, but I had one pepper that was a mystery pepper and it looked just like this. So I think I did successfully grow this one, but this is the patchwork pepper. And my kids' favorite pepper, and I think it's their favorite because it looks like candy. And this is the Biquinho pepper, red and yellow blend. So it has a mix of seeds in there. This was so fun to grow. You just pick it and pop it like candy. It is classified as a hot pepper, but there's barely any heat. I don't think there's any heat. I don't detect any heat. I actually forget it's a hot pepper, but it's not really hot at all. But grow this. It's so fun. Gardening is fun. The lemon drop pepper, oh, don't get me started. The lemon drop pepper is so pretty, so productive. Grow this one, just grow it. It does take a while to fruit, but it's worth it. The Szeged Hungarian paprika pepper, the golden California wonder pepper, the New Mex lemon spice pepper, another one I loved. Okay, I'm not gonna go off on a tangent. It's a pepper, I loved it, that's all I'm gonna say. The Shorishero pepper, Puma pepper, Datil pepper, Lute shower pepper, that's another paprika. The Murasaki purple pepper, which ripens to red, so pretty. Brown jalapeno pepper, chocolate beauty bell pepper, and a billion other peppers. So I think you get the point. Now, peppers are one of the things that a lot of people will say don't bother trying to winter sow because they don't like the cold. They're not gonna drum. They will. They may take a bit longer than a tomato or a lettuce or onions to come up, but they do come up. They may look a bit smaller than what you get from the store, but they grow just as fast. I've bought plants from the store and I've grown them alongside my winter sowed peppers and neck and neck. And I believe my peppers that I winter sowed have always been a bit more hardy, giving me less stress. Winter sow for the win. Now, let's go on to the biggest category, which is flowers. And I grew a whole bunch of flowers. I went flower crazy this year. I went from a person who was snubby. I did not think flowers were important. I did not care about them. I wanted to grow things I could eat. And I did a whole 180 and I became this person who had all the flower seeds. And I want to grow everything. So I'll show you some of the ones I grew. This is Monarda, Bergamo, the Black Prince Snapdragon, which I'm absolutely in love with, the Black-Eyed Susan, which is what caused my problems. 2 years ago, I grew some Black-Eyed Susans. I watched them grow, this along with a zinnia. It was over. I was a goner. I was like, where have you been all my life and why have I not grown you? So blame her for all the seeds I bought. The Black-Eyed Susan. Rudbeckia, this is the Cherokee Sunset, and look, I grew, I think this one came up. Oh my goodness, so pretty. I need to grow her again this year. Gaillardia, Double Sunset. Now this is the Coreopsis, and I got this one here, but it was, no, I don't think it's this. It didn't look like any of these. It was red. It was brilliant red, and I loved it. It was so pretty. I also got a yellow one that died off after a while, but Coreopsis, I'm going more of this year. The Shasta Daisy, I planted one container of this, split it into 6 different places in the yard. It blooms and is so beautiful. It's gorgeous. Shasta Daisy. Now I grew some salvias. These didn't bloom yet. I think I may have to wait one more year to see them, but I grew this salvia and a couple others. I also grew the lemon bee balm, 2 different types of yarrow, love parade, flower burst, fruit bowl. These came up really quickly, grew really nicely. Get some yarrow. The rabbits ate mine, but you get some yarrow. Now, things that need to be cold stratified, like this lavender here, will do really well with winter sowing because you are literally cold stratifying them outdoors, which is what it does in nature. They get cold stratified outside. When we get seeds and we put them in the fridge to cold stratify them, we're trying to mimic nature. When you have them outside in the winter sown containers, they're going with nature, so that's great. So try some lavender. I also grew celosia, these 2 types, the Higyoku red stem celosia, which, oh my goodness, so pretty. And then the Asian garden celosia, also gorgeous. So these 2, they did so well. I put this in like a cup or something, this celosia, and I think 8 or 9 plants came up of this one. They did well. They don't mind being winter sowed. Now, I also grew some alyssum. This is the royal carpet. This is carpet of snow. Beautiful, gorgeous. They do very well. These have no problem. You can winter sow these in freezer bags and they'll be fine. Now, another group of flowers that I grew, and did really well with winter sowing were marigolds. The marigolds were crazy good. I grew this petite yellow and lots of different ones. I grew the tall ones, the African ones, all of them. They were so good. So try some marigolds. And I also grew a load of zinnias. This is the semi-dwarf Pumila mixed colors. I grew a polar bear zinnia, queen lime blush zinnia, Persian carpet zinnia. This one was really good. This is a more of a dwarf one. It's really short, but very pretty, very pretty. And it's a mix, so you get different types. You never know which one's gonna come up. I got this and that and that and that. Pretty. Also, the pink senorita. Isn't that pretty? Look at that. Come on now. Pink senorita. And one of my favorite plants from the 2024 garden, I'd never grown it before. I don't think I'd even ever seen it before, was this one here, the Thunbergia, which is also a black-eyed Susan, but not like the other black-eyed Susan. This is a black-eyed Susan vine. They're not from the same family. Don't know why they have the same name, but Thunbergia, I grew this over a little trellis. It was so beautiful. I wish I'd put it in more places, so I will be doing that this year. Try this. If you need something to trellis, something to cover a small trellis or a big, grow this. And it stayed all the way till frost. It's a beautiful plant. Grow some Thunbergia today. Now, the bonus fruit that I winter sowed was the Yellow Wonder strawberry. And then, like I said, there are some seeds that love to be cold stratified, and this is one of them. So I grew this one and they did come up. Did I put them in the garden where I was supposed to? No, they're still sitting in the container. Don't judge me. But I'll be planting more of this year, and hopefully I'll put them out. Last year was a crazy year, okay? Cut me some slack. Now it's time to reveal my favorites from each category. And from the herbs, it has to be lemongrass. Lemongrass was such a joy in the garden, something I'd never grown before. It grew big, it grew beautiful. It was a statement piece. It smelled wonderful. Lemongrass. Try this. Winter sow it. My favorite leafy green, Chijimasai. This is heat tolerant, cold tolerant, can grow year round. It's still in my green stalk. I love it. Chijimasai. My favorite pepper that I winter sowed last year has to be the datil pepper. It was a free seed, as you can see, but I would have bought this. It was late to mature, but it was so productive and it was so beautiful. It was one of the last peppers I took out of my garden, and it looked like a Christmas tree. So gorgeous. I don't regret growing this. Try the datil pepper. Now, my top allium was the lion's mane chives. I had regular chives in my garden. I'd never grown this one before. The leaves are thicker. The flowers are white and beautiful. It's pretty, it smells good, it tastes good. My kids like to eat it, so it's a winner. Lion's mane chives. Top pick for the miscellaneous fruiting veggies has to be the Armenian yard-long cucumber, which is truly a melon grown as a cucumber. This was my attempt at getting some cucumber-like thing in my garden, but it was such a joy to grow. I loved looking at it. The bees loved it. I loved it. I loved this thing, okay? That's all I have to say. This is my top pick. Now, my favorite flower has to be the humble black-eyed Susan, because she started it. She started the flower thing, and she's beautiful. She's gorgeous. Look at her. You agree, don't you? She's pretty. And the favorite tomato, you should have guessed it, the prairie fire. This thing made me so happy. Even when the tomato is green, it looks beautiful because it has these little striations, little stripes. Look at the color. It was so beautiful. So beautiful. So I will be planting a bit more of this year. It was a joy for me. And now I will reveal the one thing I was unable to winter sow successfully last year. And that's this cold hardy pepper. And it's notoriously difficult to germinate, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of tinkering to get this one going, but didn't do it last year. Thank you so much for joining me in the garden in my home today. If you liked this video, or if you found any value in it, pretty please take a second to like the video. Subscribe. I will be making more videos about winter sowing, about my garden, about the peppers I love to grow, and you don't want to miss any of that, so subscribe and join me on my gardening journey. If you haven't watched the video on winter sowing or just need a refresher, click on this video here. And until next time, may you always find joy in your garden and your life. Bye, garden friend.